Good morning. Thanks for coming together. And I'm here today with Senator Booker, and we're each going to say a few words, and then we'll let you get started. I'm excited about criminal justice reform. I think there really is an undercurrent of unease in our country, and I'm excited that Senator Booker has joined together and is working with me on some of this criminal justice reform. And with that, what I'd like to do is turn it over to Senator Booker to let him give you a few of his ideas on what he thinks we should do for criminal justice reform.
Thank you so much, Senator Paul. I appreciate you inviting me to be with you, and more importantly, the opportunity to talk to other Americans who feel urgently and passionately about this issue, or at least have a strong interest in it. I came to the United States Senate about 13, 14 months ago after being a mayor of a big city and dealt with criminal justice issues on a daily pounding urgency. And I began to realize that there were larger issues at stake which were undermining the success of the city I represented, Newark, New Jersey, but really of our nation. We really are in a distraught present when it comes to a country that affirms these strong ideals, liberty and justice for all, equal justice under the law. But we've got caught in this trap where we're pursuing a justice system that has effects that are directly opposed to the values we believe in. The United States of America should not be the singular country in human history that is doing what it's doing. What I mean by that is that we only have about 5% of the globe's population, but we have 25% of the human beings that are imprisoned on the planet are in the United States of America. And chillingly, over 70% of those, close to 75%, are nonviolent offenders. Now, this should not be the case. Americans do not have any greater proclivity to criminality than any other human being. And in fact, I think that we as a nation that believes in freedom and believes in empowering individuals to be successful should evidence a justice system that should be the envy of the globe, not one right now that has incarceration rates that are so extraordinarily high, and incarceration rates when you look at how they affect poor or minorities. In fact, we have a larger incarceration rate between blacks and whites right now in terms of a percentage of population than apartheid South Africa did in its worst moments. And so we need to have change. I just want to say that I, as a Democrat in the United States Senate, and I think the two gentlemen sitting here before you are both Americans before they're any party label, but I do feel very grateful for the fact that I'm sitting with Rand Paul, someone who is in a different party and where we don't agree on many issues, that he and I share so many commonalities and passionate, urgent concerns when it comes to issues of criminal justice. In addition to that, I have to just say I'm grateful for Rand Paul. I told him this on the Senate floor, who's written some great articles, two columns I'm thinking of which in Time, that during this time of a lot of stress and strain, of agony and pain around this country after what happened in Ferguson and what happened in Staten Island, to see Senator Rand Paul write some of the most eloquent truths about this crisis and speak, in fact, to some of the problems we have with our criminal justice system as it affects racial minorities as well as the poor. So I was proud that on my first day in the United States Senate, Senator Rand Paul and I struck up a conversation about trying to do something about this. We specifically came to a conclusion that one of the things we wanted to do, and we've partnered on some things around reforming laws around marijuana, but this big bill that we put together called the REDEEM Act really focuses on trying to deal with a lot of the collateral consequences that happen when a person gets a drug crime. So remember, again, we have an extraordinary, historically unprecedented amount of imprisoned people. Federal prison population has gone up about 800% in the last 30 years alone. But what also happens is when we release prisoners, about 2 out of 3 of those prisoners come back in a handful of years, which is just stunning, the amount of recidivism. So Senator Paul and I decided to try to put a bill together that addressed these collateral consequences that make it so easy for people to come back, putting in there things like juvenile expungement laws, sealing for adults on the federal level, trying to make sure that when people come out, when we strip everything away, if you can imagine, you're a nonviolent drug offender, 17 years old, and you come out and now you can't get many business licenses, you can't get Pell Grants to go to college, you can't even get food stamps or access to public housing. So we addressed some of those collateral consequences. And then we put in something else in the bill that I think is important for us as Americans to stand up and acknowledge, is that we have practices in our prison systems that most of our peer nations regard as torture, literally using that word in many cases, which is the over usage of juvenile solitary confinement. So this legislation is a good step forward. It has a number of elements to it which would make a big difference in empowering people to be successful. Because when I talk about the criminal justice problem, the singularity of us as a nation in American history, the problems it has with the over-incarceration of poor and minorities in a dramatic fashion, so dramatic that there's more African Americans now in America under criminal supervision than all the slaves in 1850. When I talk about all of those things, we have to understand as a people that this hurts all of us. That the taxpayers are paying an egregious burden to incarcerate this many people at a time that our nation needs investments in roads, in higher education, needs more or returning taxpayer dollars to the people themselves. It is outrageous that we're spending this much money unnecessarily on a system that disempowers people, that often makes it less likely that they're going to succeed when they go out, often puts police officers like the department that I oversaw as mayor have to do more work, not less, in reincarcerating people because they are on that slippery slope. So there is an urgency here, and I cannot tell you enough that this is one of my most passionate issues, because it is something that's going on in our nation that so belies the truth of who we are, the possibility of our people, and most importantly, it cuts at the core of what we say our values are, our most precious values are. So in conclusion, I just want to say again, I'm so happy you all are convening there today. These conversations are urgent and important that we have in states from Kentucky to New Jersey, because change must be made not just on a federal level, but frankly, this is an issue that faces our states and even our localities and how we're exercising criminal justice. And I want to let you know that when it comes to the leadership on an issue like this nationally, I feel very fortunate to be in the United States Senate at the time that Senator Rand Paul is serving, because his leadership, along with mine and others, is going to make a big change. And I do feel that there's a powerful zeitgeist going through the country right now, when I can have in the last month conversations with Newt Gingrich, conversations with Grover Norquist, even conversations with people working with the Koch brothers, who all have the same passions that I have on this issue. Makes me feel that this is an opportune moment for we as Americans to coalesce around making significant change that can bring back a deeper and truer meaning to ideals of liberty and freedom. And with that, I'll turn it over again to Senator Paul. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Corey. I want to thank Senator Booker for coming today. In a few minutes, he's going to have to go back to Senate work. But there truly is a bipartisan nature to this, and it's something really whose time has come. When I think about this, I think back to the speech Martin Luther King gave at Stanford in 1967, and he talked about there being two Americas. And unfortunately, I think we still have some of that. We got rid of some of the worst part of legal separation, but we still have, in many ways, two Americas where people are treated differently. And I don't think it's on purpose, but people are inadvertently treated differently. Either they live in poverty, or because of poverty, many minorities are caught up in this. When you look at the statistics, 3 out of 4 people in prison for nonviolent drug crimes are black or brown. And it isn't because the police have said, oh, let's go hunt down black and brown people and let's be racially discriminatory. But the racial outcome of the drug war, of the war on drugs, has disproportionately incarcerated folks. If you read Michelle Alexander's book, she has a book called Mass Incarceration, The New Jim Crow. This is a big problem. As you know, in Kentucky, it often leads to your loss of your right to vote. But I think it's not only the voting privileges that are at risk here, it's also the opportunity to work. It is difficult to work if you have a felony record. So I think getting rid of the records, expunging the records, is a big deal. And so our bill would help to do that, would expunge records and get them off your record, so hopefully they wouldn't impair your employment process. I think another way, and we've been talking about this, and there are other bills that we're introducing, is to say, you know what, maybe some of these minor felonies could be taken down and call them misdemeanors, so you never get trapped in the first place. So you'd never actually have to put down when you try to get employment that you're a convicted felon, because maybe it would have been a youthful indiscretion that is a conviction of a misdemeanor. May not be that there's no punishment, but it would mean that the punishment is more proportional to what has happened. We have a host of bad things going on that have created these or perpetuated these two Americas where people are treated differently. In Philadelphia a couple of months ago, a teenager was caught selling $40 worth of illegal drugs. They confiscated his home. His parents' home was taken. The parents were kicked out onto the street. This happens often in the inner city where it's grandmother's home. That's the only stabilizing force in the family, and the government takes their home. This kind of stuff has to stop, and there definitely is a bipartisan sort of coming together, right and left, and people say, well, how does the religious right, respond to this? And I say, I can take this message to any church in America. In fact, if anything, the Christian audiences are coming more and more to believe that we've gone too far, that in Christianity we believe in redemption. The government should give people a second chance also. I'm excited about the possibilities of this. And in the context of what's going on, in the context of Ferguson and Eric Garner, I think it's important that we talk about what we're talking about here, because people are coming up to me all the time and saying, now, because of this conflict, does this mean criminal justice is dead? And I say no, because I don't blame the police for this. I never have blamed the police. I blame politicians primarily for the laws that we have. Police get trapped in a situation. There are good police and bad police, but you know what? Police are like the rest of us. The vast majority are good people. The mistakes that are happening are sometimes putting people in a bad situation, and I blame the politicians for creating laws that are trapping us in these bad situations. Maybe if police would have been saying with people selling unlicensed or untaxed cigarettes that you might give them a summons to appear in court or a ticket, that seems to me a little more appropriate than politicians saying, you know what, we got to take these people down, we got to physically capture these people and arrest them. That's a political decision. So I blame the politicians really for making the laws here. There are other instances of great injustice. There was about 3 or 4 months ago, a baby south of Atlanta. The police came in with what's called a no-knock raid. They threw a concussion grenade into the crib accidentally. So I don't blame the police saying, oh, they're awful people trying to injure this baby. But somebody in Congress said, let's have no-knock raids in the middle of the night chasing marijuana and other drugs. And it's like, why are we doing this? We have part of the Patriot Act right now called Sneak and Peek, where you go in and you don't have to announce you were there, and you go in clandestinely and you leave the premises. They say, we need this to capture terrorists. 99% of it's now being used in drugs, for the war on drugs. So really, we're losing some of our humanity. We have to do something different on the war on drugs. I'm really happy that Senator Booker and I are working together on this. I think the REDEEM Act that we've started is just the tip of the iceberg. This is the beginning. There's a lot more that can be done. We need your help also to call your congressmen and senators and say, we want this to happen. We want you guys to work together on this. And we have Republicans now in charge of the Judiciary Committee, but it's important that we not let our emphasis go. We have to keep pushing this to see if we can get these into the Judiciary Committee and heard. Another issue we've talked some about is mandatory minimums. Mandatory minimums are where people have an automatic sentence, sometimes of 15 years, sometimes of life. One gentleman got 55 years. He was 24 years old and got 55 years in prison for selling $300 worth of marijuana. I think that's disproportionate to the crime. It's outrageous, and there's no reason why we can't fix some of these things and let judges have more discretion. So I think there's a whole world open to us that we can try to reform. I'm glad Senator Booker and others are working with me, and I hope you guys back home in Kentucky will continue with this also. Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you.